We have so much content. We have an Unearthed Arcana that is in addition to like the setting of Eberron, correct? What is this new UA?
So the new UA returns to the Artificer class that scored very well in the surveys last time, but we still wanted to put the class back out with some key tweaks so that people could see, especially some changes to replicate magic item as well as the class's 20th level feature. But we especially wanted to send the Artificer back out so that it could accompany a brand new subclass that Mackenzie will talk about shortly. But we also, this is a classic, but wait, there's more.
Right.
We also included over 20 new feats that represent a new way for characters to be part of the wonderful Dragonmarked houses in the world of Eberron. And for anyone who doesn't know about the Dragonmarked houses, it's a mix of sort of like family and commercial groups that are almost like corporations in some cases,
right, yeah.
where one of the key unifying elements for many of the leaders of these groups are that they bear these dragon marks on their bodies, these magical tattoo-like sigils that give them magical powers. In Eberron, Rising from the Last War, we represented having one of these dragon marks with species options. And so in many cases, if you wanted to be a member of a particular house and have the dragon mark, as opposed to being a member of the house without a dragon mark,
right,
you had to make that decision at character creation. That works well in Eberron, Rising from the Last War, and everyone is free to continue to use that approach with either the 2014 rules or the 2024 rules. But we wanted to explore a new direction that allows for some of the narratives in Eberron where sometimes a dragon mark doesn't manifest on a person until later in their life. And if you lock the choice to character creation, well, that can't happen. And so we wanted you to be able to have these stories of, well, I didn't start with one of these dragon marks, but partway through my career, oh my gosh, here it is. We also wanted to allow for something that is occasionally bubbled up in Eberron narratives, and that is that sometimes the dragon marks even appear on people who are not a member of the sort of founding species for a particular house. Again, if someone isn't familiar with the story of Eberron, the Dragonmarked houses each sort of emerged within a particular species. And so then most of the people who have the dragon marks are members of the same species. But you sometimes have these people who are not a member of that group who manifest the mark. And we wanted to make that possible too. And so how we're doing that is through feats, and then also there will be backgrounds that use these feats in the Eberron book coming out later this year. But here in this Unearthed Arcana, we're zeroing in on the feats so that we can get people's feedback on this truckload of feat options.
It is a truckload.
and we not only have a starter feat for every single one of the Dragonmarked houses, we also have a feat for someone who has an aberrant dragon mark, and that is a dragon mark not associated with any of the houses. And if anyone is curious, the character Vi, who I play sometimes in Acquisitions Incorporated, she's from Eberron and she has an aberrant mark. But again, another case of, but wait, there's more. We don't just have those starter feats, we also then have feats that build on them. So if you want your character to grow more powerful with your dragon mark, you can. And we also have introduced an epic boon feat that represents having a mark of Sybaris, which is an especially powerful, sort of amped up version of a dragon mark. All of this together will provide brand new ways for people to interact with the Dragonmarked houses in Eberron. And whether, again, a character is a member of, one of the founding families or their descendants, or a person who just has discovered magically that they are now a part of one of these houses. And we look forward to seeing people's feedback on these when the survey opens up.
And we've got a brand new subclass included in this UA, correct?
So we have, in this UA, we have the new Cartographer subclass for the Artificer, which is really exciting. Whenever we're designing things for the Artificer, Jeremy likes to sort of tackle the Artificer from the problem of what kind of role this sort of character would have in the last war. And so, we have our artillerists, we have our tanks with the armorer, we have our healers, and our companion fighting side by side with the battlesmith and the steel defender. But what we don't have is a person who is all about scouting and movement and finding things. Looking at history, there's a lot of usage of cartography and scouting to help people in battle move advantageously, find the targets they're looking for. And so we wanted to really hone in on a class that delivers that sort of feeling, while also staying true to the Artificer's main narrative as being a person who makes something. And that doesn't necessarily have to be just with like metal or tinkering or like robotics. It can be craftsmanship, it can be textiles, it can be maps, which is the heart of what the Cartographer does and makes. So this is a subclass that is meant to be very focused on movement, being connected to place, but also being connected to finding things and highlighting threats to help your allies.
And when we start off playing this Cartographer,
Yes.
what are some of the key abilities?
So at the very top, like all of our other Artificer subclasses, the Cartographer gets proficiency with a handful of specific artisan tools, as well as, in this case, calligraphy supplies and Cartographer's tools, which feels like a given.
Yeah. Seems appropriate.
Seems appropriate, but also you, similar to how other artificers have a little bit of an easier time crafting certain magic items, cartographers have an easier time crafting spell scrolls. Again, sort of leaning into that pen and paper and that careful study. You also get, like many of our artificers, a list of always prepared spells, which is super fun. You'll see spells on here that are very divination focused, things like locate creature, as well as some fun spells that utilize movement better and help highlight targets for both you and your allies. Speaking of your allies, that leads into the sort of highlight the banner 3rd level feature, Adventurer's Atlas. Which is the, we've said with all artificers are keyed to making something. The alchemist makes its elixirs, the battlesmith makes its companion, all those different things. So the Cartographer makes these magical maps. I like to think of it as like your personal friend GPS, because how it sort of functions is you make these maps and you key them to certain characters. And while the characters have these maps, they get certain benefits. I like to think of it, one of the ways you can manifest it narratively is like having the map and you can just see like the dots moving anywhere on the same plane of existence. So you can just always know where your friend is. And that gives you a couple of benefits. It gives you a little boost to initiative because you're going to be more aware of your surroundings and your topography because of that map. But very excitingly, it allows you to target another creature who's holding a map, essentially another creature you can see whose dot is on your little map. You can target them regardless of actually seeing them. If an effect like a spell requires you to see your target, such as like Healing Word, you need to see your target. So that allows you to, like, if your rogue is hiding, you can still target them as long as you have the map and you can see their position. You can also target them in later levels using like your Flash of Genius. You don't have to have line of sight.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Like if they're swallowed in like a purple worm's gullet.
Yeah.
You can't see them, but you have like their location on the map, so you can still target them through the map, even if you don't actually have direct line of sight with them.
Yeah.
It's this really fun way of like playing with location in a magical sense that provides a lot of utility, not just for the Artificer, but for the Artificer's allies. And very importantly, you can be one of the people holding this map. Like sometimes I think we get caught up in giving like a lot of our other party members like all the cool stuff. You can also benefit from your Adventurer's Atlas. You can be one of the characters keyed to it, which also allows like your cleric friend to still see you if you happen to keel over behind a wall and
Right,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing build. Yeah,
Yes.
that is something that is, it's very unique, and
Yes.
it makes you a great support character.
Yes, and it was one of those things where it was really fun, again, playing with the idea of location and place, of seeing things, highlighting things, and giving your companions a little bit of an edge. In addition to all of that wonderful stuff, you also get a little bit of a personal boost to yourself. So in the event that you decide to give your maps to everyone else, like, your cleric or your bard, they have a much better use for seeing people, or you need to give your fighter a little bit more of a boost to their initiative, you still have some awesome abilities with your own scouting gadgets. So this kind of manifests in two ways. You have a radar, which lets you sort of ping and highlight creatures, allowing them to see. It's fairy fire, but it's thematically, we like to think of it as like, you're pinging creatures, you're being able to highlight them so that way you can see them, revealing invisible creatures, all that sorts of things. And then my personal favorite, as a person who loves spamming the jetpack in like little video games, you have a boost ability. It's a little bit like, it is a mini teleport. So instead of moving on your turn, you can expend half your movement and just poof. A short little distance. It's a great for like getting away from creatures when you don't need, or you don't have the action to disengage. It's really great for just like jumping up like a little bit of a level when you can't climb.
Yeah.
And this is really leaning into that cartographer's idea of movement and being tied to the magic of place and location.
And then at level 5, you get some.
You get a little bit more boost for your boost.
You get more boost for the boost.
You get more boost for your boost. So at level 5, you get to teleport even farther. I like to think of it of, you are the map person, you know all these locations, and now you can sort of like open up these portals because you are so magically tied to the knowledge of these locations. You can just open up these portals in the air and move obscene distances with just like with a snap of the fingers. You can also teleport some of the to people that are carrying the maps you've made, almost like a homing beacon. So that gives you another way to use this feature that is really tactical for like getting to a creature and shoving a potion down their mouth, or getting to a creature so you can intercept an attack from them. Like if they're getting ganged up on by a bunch of, like a mob of enemies, you can teleport right next to them and help kind of spread out the damage or be a meat shield.
And then you get more teleportation,
You always
correct?
get more teleportation.
There's way more. This is a very good artificer to hang with the Feywild Warlock.
One of the things that we found that the Artificer kind of needed was a very movement utility focused niche. Like that is something that we don't quite really have yet. So that's why this Artificer is just sort of bopping all over the map.
And also kind of the person in the chair
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yep. They know a lot of things and they can move out of the way. And then the other thing is that a lot of their knowing a lot of things spells happen to be like concentration spells, like Fairy Fire. And being able to bop out of danger and go, bye, is really good for keeping that concentration, which we also buff a little bit later.
That's a very good point.
we buff a little bit later in the subclass as well. But yes, at level 9, we give you a fun way to interact with your Flash of Genius. Sort of, again, keying off this, the way that your intellect and your magic manifests is with this ability to tactically position people. When you use your Flash of Genius, you can teleport 30 feet, or you can teleport a creature you can see. And this also works really well with the map you have, because if you can't see a creature normally, but you have them on your map, you can still activate Flash of Genius, and you can still move them to a spot that you can see, even if you can't see them. So again, if they're stuck in someone's gullet or they're behind a wall and kind of locked down from enemies, you can pull them out of those situations.
How far does that work?
30 feet.
30 feet. Okay, so
Same
you
range
still
as
need to be physically 30 feet of them. Yeah.
Yes. It's really easy to remember because the effect that keys off Flash of Genius is the same range as Flash of Genius.
Yeah, and then after that...
Yes, and then after that, your key map, the map that you've been giving to all your friends, gets an even bigger and better buff. Like we mentioned previously, while these maps exist, you can't lose concentration from taking damage. It also gives a way to... if someone who is carrying this map gets reduced to 0 hit points, it gives them a essentially auto-save teleport.
Yeah.
Where if they can take the map and destroy it and then be teleported to someone else who is holding a map, immediately, as soon as they get dropped. And then you get immediately stabilized as well. So it's a really good way of just like, if you give your cleric the map, and your cleric is one of the people in this network of maps, if you drop down, you can immediately get teleported 5 feet next to the cleric, so that way they can easily heal you and get you back up. Or you can have someone like behind total cover who maybe doesn't need to be actively like shooting or be actively frontline combat, but can have like a safe little like healing tent. And then when someone gets down, they get immediately teleported to the healing tent to be revived or to take care of themselves. It's this really nice, like, safe ability where you can pull your companions into a safe place so that way they don't get at risk for getting hit with more damage while they're unconscious.
Yeah.
The other thing, which again seems really appropriate, like Cartographer's tools, you can cast Find the Path if you're holding a map. It seemed appropriate. Yeah. It's the map class should be able to cast the Find Your Way feature, or Find Your Way spell. So that one, we give you that one for free, and as long as you are one of the people that you have keyed your map to, you can use that wonderful magical map of yours to just cast that spell.
So you get the benefits of this map, but you can also hand this map to somebody else.
Yes.
Okay.
It is intended to be that way because there are some. So there are some spells on this subclass's spell list that work really well with you having the map. So like Healing Word and Haste, as well as like other Artificer features like Flash of Genius, all work really well keying off of you have to see the target.
Yeah.
And so when you have this map, that allows you that sort of tactical positioning to still be able to see the target even if you don't have direct line of sight of them. But there are some characters or some classes that might benefit more from having more abilities that sort of key off of being able to see creatures. So we wanted to give you and build in this flexibility so that way from day to day you can go, okay, I'm going to have the map for this day because I need to see people for X, Y, and Z. The next day, okay, I'm going to make a new set of maps that's not going to include me but is going to include my cleric and my bard friends, so that way they can use their features way more effectively during this combat.
Mackenzie, thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me and letting me talk my head off. As
always, we appreciate the comments. We appreciate any comments on social media. The best way is to take the survey and leave your feedback on anything Unearthed Arcana. Thank you so much for watching. Yay.